Everyone calls it a dinner invitation. It was an execution warrant written in blood. Edinburgh Castle, November 1440. A 14-year-old boy, King James Roman II of Scotland, sat at the head of a table laden with roasted meat and wine. Across from him sat William Douglas, the 8th Earl, barely older, flanked by his brother David. The king smiled. Within the hour, both brothers were dead. I've read the accounts myself, and what strikes you first is how methodical it was. Not a mob killing, not a brawl. This was orchestrated theater, disguised as hospitality. For decades, historians have accepted the official story. The Douglas family had grown too powerful a threat to the crown itself. They controlled vast territories in the Scottish borders, commanded armies, and answered to no one. So the king's advisors engineered this dinner to eliminate them in one stroke. Clean, decisive, problem solved. It's a tidy narrative. Almost too tidy. But here's where the accepted version starts to crack. The Douglas clan wasn't some sudden threat that appeared in 1440. They've been accumulating power for a generation. Why invite them to dinner now? And why William? He was young, relatively inexperienced. His father, the 7th Earl, had died just 2 years earlier. If the crown wanted to decapitate the family, why not wait? Why risk a dinner when an ambush on the road would have been cleaner? The answer lies in a detail most accounts gloss over. James Roman II regent at the time was Sir Alexander Livingstone. Not the king himself. The king was 14, a boy, and Livingstone had his own reasons to fear the Douglases. The Livingstone and Douglas families were rivals, old money versus new power. Livingstone needed the Douglas threat neutralized before he lost control of the regency. The dinner wasn't the crown's idea. It was Livingstone's. This reframes everything. Livingstone needed the young king's hand on the execution order, needed the legitimacy of royal authority. So he invited William Douglas to dinner under the guise of peace negotiations. The boy Earl accepted. Why wouldn't he? You don't refuse a royal invitation. That was the trap. The accounts describe what happened next with eerie precision. As the meal progressed, servants brought in the piece de resistance, a black bull's head on a platter. In medieval symbolism, it meant death. William Douglas understood immediately. He rose from his seat, and that's when the guards moved in. His brother David tried to run. Neither made it to the door. They were executed in the castle courtyard within minutes. No trial, no confession. Just 2 young men dead and a 14-year-old king watching it happen. But here's what the power consolidation theory misses. The aftermath nearly destroyed Scotland. The Douglas family didn't vanish. They went to war. The surviving Douglases allied with England, Scotland's mortal enemy, and launched raids into the borders that lasted for years. Livingstone had meant to eliminate a threat. Instead, he'd created an enemy of the state. The clean solution had been catastrophically short-sighted. This is where the real explanation emerges. The Black Dinner wasn't a calculated act of state security. It was a power grab by a regent who'd panicked. Livingstone saw the Douglas family as a threat to his control of the young king, but he didn't see the consequences. He was thinking tactically, not strategically. One dinner, one night, problem solved, except it wasn't. The Douglases' retaliation came swiftly. Within months, they declared themselves enemies of the crown and were burning Scottish towns. The king, now understanding he'd been used as a puppet, eventually turned on Livingstone. By the 1450s, the Douglas strongholds were besieged by royal forces. The family was finally broken, not in 1440, but over a decade of grinding warfare. What the history books rarely emphasize is this: the Black Dinner solved nothing. It created a power vacuum that took Scotland 15 years to fill. Livingstone had won the evening but lost the decade. That's the real scandal. Not that a regent killed a rival, but that he did it so carelessly, so convinced of his own control, that he nearly destabilized an entire kingdom. The lesson of the Black Dinner isn't about power consolidation. It's about the cost of short-sightedness in the halls of power. Livingstone thought a dinner invitation could solve a political problem. He was half right. It solved the immediate problem, but it created 3 more. That's the pattern of court intrigue across every European monarchy I've studied. The moment you think you've won, you've already lost. Subscribe for more untold stories from European courts. where the real power plays happened far from the official histories. Subscribe, there's a new court scandal every week that rewrites what you thought you knew about power.